Hairs are everywhere today. It's a process to get the hair right. A couple years ago, I used to have a buzz cut. Decided to start growing out my hair. Had the typical curly top. One of my buddies convinced me, he was like, yeah man, you know, you look pretty decent with some dreads. I was like, I don't know. So tried it, fell in love with the hairstyle, and boom, that's it. So from the title, you guys can see that we're talking all about bulking tips. But before we get into it, I wanted to talk to you guys about P Science's high volume. So I take this pretty much every single time that I work out. I get 2 scoops of it in because I weigh over 160 pounds. So I just follow the recommendations on the back of the label. But basically what this does is it helps in getting a better pump while you're in the gym. Personally, I drink a lot of caffeine already, so I don't like stem pre-workouts. I like non-stem pre-workouts because it still allows me to get the same benefits that I would get from a pre-workout without the caffeine. Like I said, I'm a heavy coffee drinker, I'm a dad, I'm a husband. I gotta get my caffeine in early in the day, and I can't wait till later in the day when I typically go to work out to try to get some caffeine in me. So if you've never tried high volume, I highly recommend giving it a shot. I've had a couple clients already try it and they absolutely love it. And I've been taking this now for about 2 years and it's pretty good stuff. Just 2 quick scoops. There's no calories in this either, so it's really great. You don't have to necessarily weigh it to make sure that you get the right amount in, as long as you're following the recommendations on the actual label. So, got water everywhere. We're gonna talk about tips for bulking, but before we do, I'm gonna jump into this quick workout, take you guys along with me. It's my upper body day, my second one of the week, my day 4, so let's get right into it. The goal of that set was to be about 2 reps away from failing, meaning that 2 reps away from being able to fully extend my arm at the very end. Now, I technically think I overshot it just a little bit, but it's all right, it's all a part of the plan. Ultimately, if I push myself a little bit more this week, next week I can make up for it by holding back just a little bit less. When it comes to hypertrophy or building muscle, you see the most benefit from taking the downward portion of the movement nice and controlled, and then the concentric portion of the movement, if you focus on being explosive, the hope is that over time, you'll be able to hit multiple types of muscle fibers, type 2, type 1, so on. My first tip, as far as bulking goes, would be tempo. So there's some recent research, I'll flash it over here, talking about how the tempo of lifts doesn't actually matter so much as the amount of total volume that you're getting in on day-to-day, week-by-week basis. So the tempo of your lifts should be pretty smooth, pretty even, but you don't have to be so focused on it. The reason I'm focused on the tempo that I'm doing is because previously I had a pretty poor tempo that probably wasn't conducive for growing more muscle. The first tip would be to make sure that you have a controlled tempo, not necessarily one that is specifically slow, specifically fast, but pretty controlled all throughout. So one of my favorite exercises of all time has to be the dip. Growing up as a gymnast, I did tons of dips and I really enjoyed them. So I wanted to go ahead and give another shout out to an amazing, amazing product that I absolutely love. So if you guys don't know, I work with Petula Active, which is an active clothing brand. As you guys can see from this Game Time t-shirt, they make some of the most comfortable men's clothing that you could ever imagine. This shirt is my absolute favorite, and it's from their most recent launch back in August, so there's plenty of time to still snag you one. They also have these different color hues of tie-dye shorts, and I have to say, this is no cap whatsoever. These are my favorite shorts of all time, so make sure you guys check out Petula Active on Instagram and TikTok as well, and be sure to follow Sammy Bosser, who is the owner and founder of Petula. So can't say how much I love them enough. You gotta check them out. Takeaway number 2 when it comes to bulking. Don't worry so much about exhausting each and every single day to the point of no return. You have to fatigue your muscles, recover, fatigue, recover, back and forth. And most importantly, step number 3, your diet, which we're gonna get into right now. The most important thing that you can do when you're on a bulking diet is make sure you have a sufficient amount of protein in your diet. So anywhere from about 0.7 up to about 1 gram per pound of lean body mass tends to be pretty decent for getting enough protein in your diet. And if you're someone like me, a competitive natural bodybuilder, someone that exerts a lot of energy, does a lot of resistance training pretty often, you might benefit from even more protein intake, somewhere between like 1.1 to 1.3 grams per pound of body weight could be beneficial. Understanding that protein is super important, the next two macronutrients to talk about are going to be your carbohydrate and your fat intake. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to link an article below. Basically, the researchers came to the conclusion that your fat intake can matter for some people, and then for other people it might not matter as much. Personally, when I have a high fat diet and I'm in a bulk, I tend to notice that I do gain a little bit more body fat more rapidly than if I were to have a higher carbohydrate intake. When you consume a decent amount of carbohydrates, you're going to use them as an energy source. And as it talks about in the article, there is some research pointing towards that you might not store excess carbohydrates as easily as body fat. In my situation, I personally think that with the increase in carbohydrates, I tend to have a little bit more energy, and therefore I burn a little bit more calories because I move around a little bit more because I expend that energy. So with me currently being in a bulk and having done many before, I've observed that over time, my body just doesn't handle a higher fat intake very well. This doesn't mean that I can't have fun with some of my food choices, it just means that I need to be aware. A bulking diet and a cutting diet, both diets that involve a decent amount of detail, and if your goal is to build muscle, this doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be easy. It can be simple, but easy is not necessarily what you're looking to go for when you're trying to bulk. My best recommendation would be to observe yourself. Try having a higher fat intake and see if you do well. Try having a high carb intake, see if you do well. If you do better with one versus the other, then go ahead and make that educated decision. The last thing I'll say is you don't want to be in too much of a surplus too soon. You only need to go about 20% above your usual maintenance calories. So that's how many calories it takes for you to maintain your weight in order for you to bulk properly. So I'm gonna end the video here. Be sure, if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel and consider leaving a like and a comment. It really helps out a lot. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.